Have you ever wanted to play Super Nintendo games on the go? Well, I might have just the device for you. The RetroDuo Portable version 2. Don't ask me the difference between version 1 and version 2 because I don't know. But basically, I was looking for a portable Super Nintendo and I'd seen the other one, the Superboy, right? I see that being sold mainstream on Zavvi.com, £95. Saw a few reviews online and decided that wasn't the one for me. It stretches the picture, so the screen is widescreen. There's no way to force it out of widescreen to its original 4:3 ratio. So after a bit of research, I found that this is a much better option. It's made by RetroBit, who also do a home version of this console as well. And I'll just open it up and show you a little bit of what you get in the box. So here is the console itself, and straight away you can feel this is a quality thing. It's not that light, it's got a little bit of weight in it. I say, but it's not too heavy either. It's sort of the perfect sort of weight for a portable console. You've got a directional pad, 4 face buttons just like on the Super Nintendo controller, and you have your 2 shoulder buttons on the top there. Also on the front you have a start and select button, very important for a Super Nintendo game, and you have a contrast button here to change the brightness of the screen. The volume is down at the bottom of the console. You have AV out on the top, which also acts as a headphone socket as well. And on the side you have another USB connector. I'll show you what that's for in a moment. And on the other side, yes, you've got your AC in as well, so you're on off. So what else do you get in the box? Well, you actually get quite a lot of other stuff. You get the RetroDuo Portable adapter, which is what slots into that mini USB on the side there, when you get it the right way round, just like that. So this enables you to play 2-player games on the go. And well, you probably need to be able to stand the thing up if you want to do that. Well, it comes with a stand, which is just amazing, and it's very easy to connect the stand. If you see the back of the console there, there's 2 little holes, and you can just pop the stand into those 2 holes there and it will sit on your table quite nicely. So what else do you get? Well, you get the AV cable, just like that, so you can pop that into the top of the console and connect it to your television. I'll just point out now, if you want to do that and save on a little bit of the internal battery life on this, you can press the contrast button to turn the screen off completely, which is really fantastic. Yeah, should you want to do that, how well does it work? So you get the composite cable with it that plugs into the top, as I mentioned, and what's really good about that is it's not a totally round connection there, so it gives you room to fit the cartridge in behind it, which is very good, and they've thought of that. So then you want to plug this into your television. I tried plugging this into my CRT TV, which is again a PAL system. It can't take the NTSC signal from this device. So if you're plugged into an older television, then you may have some issues, if you live in the UK at least. If you live in America, then I don't think you have a problem whatever you plug it into. But I tried this on a newer HD television through the composite cables, and that worked very well. I'd say the picture you get on your TV is slightly darker than it appears on screen, but it's not so bad, and you can certainly see everything you're doing, but it is just that slightest bit darker than it does appear on the screen there. So you also get the mains adapter, which is American, but it's not a different voltage than over here. So what you can do is just pick up a a plug like this. It doesn't have to be this exact one, but this is the one I happen to pick up, and that gives you the option to plug in whatever into it, and that works perfectly fine without any sort of step down converters or anything like that. I nearly forgot one other thing you get are these 2 screws. Now what are those 2 screws for? Well, they're for something else which is also included in the box. This thing. What's this? This is the retro port, and it says play your NES games on your RetroDuo Portable. Wow. I'll show you a little bit what it's like to actually put a game in here. Before I do that, I'll just mention it's got an internal rechargeable battery. Of course, you charge for the AC adapter, and I've heard it's about 8-hour battery life on that, so that's pretty good. I've played it for some time, and it does take a while to die down, that battery does. So here's an American Super Nintendo game. This is Turtles in Time, and how that slots in really easily, very comfortably. And that doesn't add a lot of weight to the console either. You know, the cartridge is quite light, it feels still quite comfortable in the hands. Now, if you wanted to play your NES games on there, then first of all, you plug this in, just in the same way. So then you get something that looks a little bit like that. And of course you can guess when you stick an NES cartridge, this is going to get rather tall. An NES cartridge. So that fits in quite nicely actually. It's not a struggle to get that in at all. But then you have this. And so those 2 screws here, well basically you only need to use one of them, but you pop it in here. But that keeps it held in permanently unless you use a screwdriver, I think, to unscrew it, which isn't that great. So if you can get like a screw with maybe a bigger head that you can just unscrew yourself, then that's a lot better. I think they're available, so you should be able to get a replacement screw for that. But otherwise it will work without being screwed in. You just hear a little rattle there. It actually works perfectly well. So you can also plug something else into it that's not an NES cartridge or a Super Nintendo cartridge. You can plug Sega Mega Drive or Genesis cartridges into the system. No way. Well, yes way. If you happen to have the RetroGen adapter right here, then you can play your Mega Drive games on it, and that's a really simple process. Again, a lot like the retro port for the NES games. You just pop that in like that, and that is again a very comfortable fit inside. And we have a Mega Drive game somewhere here. Well, we have a Japanese Mega Drive game, and that should fit on quite nicely there, as illustrated. And they work fine, at least the ones I've tried. Now, should you want to play Master System games on this console, then you can. You can use a Master System power base converter. This is the one for the Mega Drive 1. This is a massive peripheral that sits on top of the Mega Drive 1 quite nicely, but it doesn't really sit inside this very nicely at all. But it does function. If you plug that into there like that, what you can then do is you can plug your Master System game. I've got Sonic Chaos here. We can plug that into the top like that, and that plays your Master System games no problem at all, which is, it's quite amazing. What you probably want to do if you wanted to do that is you just get a similar converter that isn't this massive one. You can get the Mega Drive 2 Master System converter, which is substantially smaller, about the same size as a RetroGen adapter. So if you're lucky enough to have one of them, then much more preferable to use that than the original one. So that's really cool. You can also plug a Super Game Boy into this thing to enable you to play Game Boy games on it as well. I don't know why you want to do that, because it's a perfectly good portable device for playing Game Boy games on, and that's called a Game Boy. So I suggest you probably stick with your Game Boys, but you can do it nonetheless. What's also nice, I didn't really point out, this is a flap, so dust isn't going to get inside there. It's got a nice little flap to stop that from happening. So that's basically what you get in the box and some of the peripherals you can use with it. Now, do all the games work? So this is the point where yes and no. The majority of the games I've tried on the RetroDuo Portable work no problem whatsoever. Although, if you are British or you play PAL video games, then you'll find that any Super Nintendo game published by Nintendo does not quite work properly, which is a bit of a pain. This is an NTSC machine, it doesn't like PAL games. Donkey Kong Country starts up, so yeah, it pops up for a moment then it disappears. But it basically says to you that this cartridge is not designed for the system, and any adapter you're using to try and play this cartridge, which assumes that's what this is, may damage your system. So that's a bit of a pain, and unfortunately the RetroDuo itself doesn't even have any buttons to switch it between regions, so this is an American Super Nintendo. Which means it plays American Super Nintendo games absolutely fine, and the majority of PAL games. So don't worry so much, because that would be the worst case scenario. You bought this to be a portable Super Nintendo, you live in Britain, you can't play with your PAL games. Well, the only games I've found that really have that problem are the Nintendo published ones. And of course, there are some other fantastic games on the Super Nintendo, not published by Nintendo. For example, Street Fighter 2 works absolutely perfectly on the RetroDuo Portable. And it's a perfect game for using your two-player adapter as well. It's quite easy to play two-player Street Fighter 2. So if you feel like you take this on a plane or a train with you, you bring your adapters and your controllers and such, you've effectively got the same ability as you do with a Nintendo Switch and a version of the latest Street Fighter 2 for that. So, you know, that's not bad at all.
It's like a Switch, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just like a Switch. I mean, the screen's not quite as big as a Switch, of course, but it's still pretty playable. And also the stand gives you the perfect viewing angle there, which is very easy to see. You've got to remember to turn your adapter on though. If you don't turn it on, it doesn't work. Okay. Now, Master System games. I did find out that one particular Master System game did not work properly, and that was Wonder Boy in Monsterland. I'll show you a little what happens when you try and play that game on the RetroDuo Portable. If I can find all the little bits to make that happen. So usually they'll work absolutely fine, no problem whatsoever. But if you want to play Wonder Boy in Monsterland on it, then it doesn't quite work. Wonder Boy gets a little stuck in the corner there. There's something wrong with the control. It doesn't seem to like the Super Nintendo control input. Plays a game fine, but does not like being played with Super Nintendo controls. So that's a bit of a shame. You may find other games that have that problem as well. I just wanted to point out to you that there are games out there which aren't going to work perfectly, but as I said before, the majority of games I've tried on this system work perfectly. And it's actually an excellent way to just have a one-stop console. You know, you can connect to this television as well. You've got the mains adapter as well. I probably wouldn't recommend using the mains adapter all the time and using this as a home console, because that's probably going to damage your battery and it's going to wear down sooner rather than later. But You can get replacement batteries for these too, and you can get a bigger size battery, I've heard, as well. So I'm kind of covered in the battery department. Now, does it play all import games as well? Is a very good question that you may ask. Well, so far we've looked at PAL and NTSC games, and they play fine. But if we perhaps had a Japanese Super Nintendo game called Muscle Bomber, or as it's known, I think in the US, Saturday Night Smackdown or something like that. So Slam Masters, Saturday Night Slam Masters, I think it's called in the in America. A game that's also available on the Mega Drive as well. So will it play your Japanese games? Well, yes, it will. I'd be very interested to find out if it actually played the Japanese Nintendo titles as well. That would be very interesting. So does it play Japanese Mega Drive games? What you've all been wondering, of course, using the RetroDuo adapter. And yes, it does. No problem there. So that's pretty cool, actually. You know, I really can't get over how good this machine actually is, because the amount of things it does play, and plays very well indeed, is really just astounding. Let's take a little closer look at the screen of the machine, just to give you an idea what it looks like. So here is Turtles in Time running on the RetroDuo Portable. So as you can see there, the screen's really nice. Just don't expect anything high definition on this. This is effectively a CRT type display. The quality is definitely passable, more than passable in fact. I'll get you a bit of a closer look there. You can just see how good this actually looks on the screen. Definitely more than playable here. Where's the start done? But you've got to get your viewing angle just right. If you tilt this thing, well, it looks alright on the screen, but if you do tilt this thing in reality too far down, then it's going to be difficult to see. So you've got to just get the right viewing angle on that. But once you have that perfect angle for playing that, which is quite, you know, you can move it quite a bit and it still be very visible. It's incredibly easy to play. So all in all, the screen I think is rather fantastic. Now, some people have complained about the placement of the L and R buttons, preferring them to maybe be behind the cartridge. Well, because the cartridge slot is there, they can't really be there very easily, so they're up here. I don't have a huge problem with that, personally. I actually think they're quite alright up there, and a lot of games don't even use them, so I'm not so fussed about that. Whoa! So here is a NES game working on the screen as well. And that, you can see the quality on this looks really good too. Now what's the sound like? Well, that's the sound turned all the way up. That's the sound on the lower setting. I mean, the sound isn't blasting out to you. It's not. This thing isn't incredibly loud, but I think you'll agree there that the levels are quite all right. Put headphones into this, and obviously you're getting a much better and louder sound from the system as well. So you, in the sound category, you're also quite all right. Playing a little bit of Totally Rad here, which, you know, is pretty rad, to be honest. Now the big question is, does it work with the Super Game Boy controller? I know you've all been wondering this. That's nice and loud, isn't it? Well, oh my gosh, it does. And that's a Japanese game as well. If you were wondering perhaps if you can play first party Nintendo Entertainment System games like Super Mario Bros. 3 then you can. It always seems to have a problem with the PAL Super Nintendo games. And even if you still got a Super Game Boy controller plugged in, you can still use that to play, which is maybe closer to the NES controller actually, because you've got two main buttons here. I do find though sometimes you get some kind of scrolling lines on the screen a little bit with the NES games that you don't necessarily see on the Super Nintendo games. I'm not quite sure why that is, but it's certainly okay picture quality, well, as I say again, better than okay picture quality, just not quite HD. Do those Super Nintendo games with the Super FX chip work on the RetroDuo Portable? Of course, this one, Starwing, doesn't, unfortunately. I'm not sure if that's the same for every Super FX chip game. It sort of works, but as you can see on the screen, you've got a nasty big line going through it, and that doesn't go away when you go out of the main menu. It's less visible, but as you get into the main game, you can see that little glitch popping back up, where part of the screen is obscures your actions, and you can't read there at the bottom what the characters are saying. So that makes playing something like Starwing a little bit obsolete, but it sort of runs, which is something, I guess. But what's very peculiar about this is, as I mentioned before, I had problems running other first-party Nintendo published PAL games, whereas Starwing actually does work, which is a bit of a mystery. So a good question is, will this device be able to play Sonic and Knuckles plus Sonic 2 to give you the ability to play as Knuckles and Sonic 2, which is very cool. Well, we'll find out right now. See if that one works. And the answer is, on this occasion at least, no, it does not like Sonic 2 once it's plugged in to the Sonic and Knuckles cartridge. We can try that with, remember this is a PAL copy of Sonic and Knuckles and a PAL copy of Sonic 2, so it could work with an American version of these games, maybe. But does Sonic and Knuckles work on its own? Yes, it does. So that's at least something. You can still play Sonic and Knuckles, even with its weird controller on your... But again, sometimes you find that the image quality isn't as good on some games than others. Called The Lion King on the Master System through this device, that there was some problems with the animations and they can produce some weird effects. So, well, for the most part the emulation is near perfect, and no lag, may I add, as well, with the controller input. That graphically some games can look a little bit rough, and you will get some weird issues with the screen at times on some games. I've experienced this very little, but occasionally it does happen. Also, this doesn't seem to be running at consistent frame rate either. If I was to switch this to NTSC, I wonder what would happen. So I just switched the game from PAL to NTSC, and because I guess this device NTSC, it seems to like it on NTSC a lot better. As you can see here, Sonic & Knuckles is now running at full speed with no graphical glitches. So you may just want to have a little bit of fiddle around with the Retro Gen adapter, which does enable you to switch between several different regions on the side. As I mentioned, NTSC works best for Sonic & Knuckles, whereas PAL makes it run slower than I remember, at least. But maybe I just haven't played the PAL Sonic & Knuckles for a while. because of course that does run slightly slower than the NTSC version. Just want to play Sonic and Knuckles now. Anyway, so is the RetroDuo Portable worth it? Well, that all very much depends on the price of this particular device. I bought mine for £85, and I think that is a reasonable price to pay for a device that gives you so much. It gives you the ability to play games you wouldn't normally be able to play on the go. And it's such a fantastic, compact, nicely weighted, great battery life with so many different options. I mean, we've shown you how you can plug your own Super Nintendo cartridges in there, you can put all your own adapters in there, the games play nearly perfectly every time. And there's no input lag either. This machine is quite simply really good. So what are the cons to it? Well, the volume's not that high, but put your headphones in if you find that a problem. I actually personally think it's high enough. A lot of the time when playing on Gameboys I don't actually have the sound on, so that's not so much of a problem for me. All the buttons feel really nice as well. It just feels like a solid quality product. I'm really super happy with this. Great battery life as well, so I'd recommend, if this sounds like something you'd be into, playing Super Nintendo games, Mega Drive games, Master System games, Game Boy games, NES games, this is a very good machine with a good screen as well. You know, you don't always expect sometimes to actually have a very good screen for seeing the games, and well, this does. It's really a fantastic bit of kit, and yeah, comes highly recommended. So thanks very much for checking out the video. We hope you've enjoyed it. We hope you found it informative as well. And if you have any further questions about the console we haven't answered in this video, for example where you might want to get one from, then please just drop us a message, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. So until next time, game on.